Welcome to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. As always, thanks for joining us this week. So every week, as you tune in, listen, my guests and I know that change is hard, and whatever that means to you, whatever change you're going through in life. So to help you on that journey, I do have a free gift for you. Take my free communication style assessment, and it's really impactful from the perspective of growing your business, growing your client base, even with your family and friends. It will help. It'll spotlight, you get a report showing your superpower, which we really need to know how we're showing up, how people are seeing us. So that's your superpower, your natural kind of ingrained in you. And then you get the blind spot, which is your lowest style, which will help you identify people who are 180 degree different than you, so you can understand how to modify and communicate with them in the most impactful way. So go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA. And that is my free gift to you. And I hope it helps you on this voyage of change that we all face every day. Now, my motivational quote today is by Andy Hargreaves, and he says, "Too often, shared visions really mean, I have a vision, you share it." Now, lately, I've been reading more and more articles about, new leadership skills, right? Agility, empathy, respectful communication, and just the list goes on. And for me, I have this very curious mind. I keep coming up with the question, are these skills that I just listed, empathy, agility, all of that, are they really new? Or should they already have been part of our leadership models within organizations all along? As I reflect, I personally feel that leaders from around the globe are waking up to, I believe, what true leadership should have been all along, and that we've been blindly using maybe these outdated models from the turn of the century, if you will. And I believe the cost of not shifting or changing our perspective of leadership is going to create a loss of productivity and, of course, of revenue. So I have an amazing guest today. He's my wonderful friend and colleague from Maine, and Kevin Hancock and I are going to talk about his new book about sharing leadership, the power of shared leadership. Now, Kevin is the CEO of Hancock Lumber, which happens to be one of the oldest companies in America, and also a 6-time recipient of the best place to work in Maine. Clearly, he's an expert. And in 2010, at the peak of the national housing and mortgage market collapse, Kevin acquired a rare neurological voice disorder called spasmodic dysphonia. If I said that right, SD for short. And when his own voice became weakened, he developed a new leadership style based on the strengths of the voices of others. And that's what we're going to talk about today. His book, The Seventh Power, One CEO Journey into the Business of Shared Leadership. So Kevin, thank you so much for being on. And I think this is your 6th or 7th time on, right?
Connie, I am just excited to be with you. Every time you invite me, I am like, yes, I can't wait to come back and talk with you. So good to see you, and thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure, Kev, to have you, and your vision, your shift in leadership with your own company. And it was your company, it was your family's company that you guys started in what, 1848? Is that right? 1848?
Correct. Yes, before the first cannonball was fired in the Civil War, our company was in business, and I'm part of the 6th generation of my family to help lead the company.
What do you think the secret to that longevity is? 6 generations. I mean, that's remarkable. Kevin, what do you think is the secret sauce for you and your family to have lived this long, to survive this long, really?
Yeah, well, jokingly, I like to say you had to have started a really long time ago. But beyond that, I think it first takes some luck. You need some good fortune, but as we all know, I think luck does favor the persistent, and luck favors good values. And I think our companies always had a high level of respect for the human spirit, the people who work in our company and the customers that engage our company.
And excuse me, values, super important. And, my kids just graduated. I have 22 and 25-year-olds, so they're new grads. And as we talk, what do I want to do? What's my passion? And so I keep telling them what you're doing today and 20 years from now, it's going to look very different. Here's the thing. What is the value of the organization? Because if the values match, even if it's not your dream job, but the values are there, mutual respect, all those things you just listed, you'll learn because you're in the right place where they have similar values to you. So they care about you, the person. And I think that's really important in all organizations.
Yeah, totally. We have a saying here at our company, always changing to remain the same. So what's always changing is the best practices about how we manufacture, logistics, sales, human resources, all of that constantly is reinventing itself. But the thread that remains the same through that is your core values. And I think that values sometimes are underrated within companies. The way I think about it is this. I think companies typically get whatever they prioritize, and whatever your values are really manifests in what your focus is. And so if a company's not getting something of meaning, it's not because that company can't, it's just because that company probably hasn't consistently prioritized a value set that would achieve whatever outcome they're not experiencing.
And now your company, you manufacture lumber. So with COVID, did you had to have been initially greatly affected, right? Because everything had to shut down. No, but right, you had to shut down, I would think.
Well, we had a very interesting COVID experience. We never closed.
Wow.
Never shut down, and we never worked remotely. As I like to jokingly say, we didn't figure out, Connie, how to make lumber from our couch and sweatpants.
Right?
One of those businesses where if you're open, you have to be there to do it, and everybody has to be there. So our entire company, 640 people across 15 sites in Maine and New Hampshire, has worked on site every day through COVID. And as we hopefully near I don't want to say an ending, but a real low grading of COVID, I've had so many people in our company say how much they appreciated the normalcy of their work experience at Hancock Lumber while they had spouses and cousins and kids home, for 2 years in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And normalcy is important to some extent, but also the income was there, right? That you didn't have to lay people off, and all of the economic factors that COVID kind of hurt a lot of industries. So
Right. Yeah. So we just were blessed to be in an industry that was deemed quote unquote essential. Of course, they're all essential, but so we stayed open and found plenty of ways to be safe. Statistically, our people got COVID at a rate that was lower than the overall Maine average, even though we were coming to work every day.
So just think about that piece of the puzzle, right? Logically, it goes back to the values though, Kevin, right? That logically you did not risk your employees' lives, right? Especially initially when we didn't know the impact of COVID and people were dying, especially the elders.
Yep.
So there was a lot of unknowns. And so that to take all those, the value of your employees into account. And again, here's another statistical anomaly that your company, I think, it happens within your company because of the shared leadership, which we're going to talk about in a minute, everybody, I promise, that understanding the values, respecting the employees, taking all the precautions, them having normalcy, right? No economic impact. And oh, by the way, the number of COVID cases within your organization were lower than what the industry standard was. So it can be done when you use good judgment, insight, right? Respect, all of those pieces of the puzzle. So well done. I love hearing your stories because they're inspiring, they're logical. And when people say, oh no, that can't be done. Well, here's a great example of living proof that worked, right? In hindsight, it worked.
Yeah, you made a great point there and I should have mentioned this, when COVID first hit and we learned that we could stay open, the next step was we took the time to ask everybody in the organization what they wanted to do. I didn't have any interest in making people work through COVID, and pretty much unanimously people wanted to work through it. And you mentioned we're going to talk about shared leadership. I think the reason we did so well during COVID was our shared leadership culture was already in place. You think about how COVID spreads. It spreads one human at a time. So it said who has to be engaged and involved for a community, society, nation, or planet to get through COVID. The answer is everybody. And so our shared leadership approach really set us up nicely for dealing with the challenges that have come with living in the age of COVID.
Yeah. And guys, I do have to do a plug for Kevin, because the book is called The Seventh Power: One CEO's Journey into the Business of Shared Leadership. And I'm telling you, it's a life-changing book for all my leaders listening. It's life-changing and it's logical. You can easily apply the model into your own organization and change the culture. So that's my next question, Kev. In the book, One CEO's Journey, the Seventh Power, One CEO's Journey into the Business of Shared Leadership, you dedicate a whole chapter into the culture, and you feel culture makes the difference. And you've mentioned culture a couple of times and values. Let's talk about why at the core is that important. And before you said, we already had the culture in place when COVID hit. And I reached out to my people and I said, what do you think? Right? That's that whole shared leadership perspective. But why do you think culture is such a critical factor?
Yeah, come to talk about it this way. Culture makes the difference, and great people are actually everywhere. That the planet's filled with amazing people, but not all organizations or communities perform at an amazing level. So what's the difference? Well, it's not the people, it's the culture those people are living in and operating in. And history, to me, plays it's out time and time again. One of the examples I look at in the book is Germany after World War II. Germany, of course, was divided along an arbitrary line into, a lot of young people wouldn't even know this today, but there was a West Germany and an East Germany, and West Germany went on to become one of the strongest economic, innovative countries on earth, and East Germany hung on under barbed wire and concrete and machine gun towers until it collapsed under its own weight. But would anyone say that the reason was that all the best, quote unquote, German people happened to be west of that line when it was divided? Of course not. There were amazing people on both sides of that line. The difference was the cultures of the societies. One side of that line, the West, really honored the power of the individual human spirit. And the other side of that line was a real crazy fanatic example of totalitarianism, power to the center, power away from the individual. You see this today in North and South Korea. The South Korean economy, I think, is like 40 times larger than the North Korean economy. But there are amazing people on both sides of that line. I think it's a leadership cop-out when an organization's not performing to say it's because we don't have great people. The answer is no, your company's filled with great people. You don't have a culture that's honoring the human spirit.
Amen. It is a cop out. You're absolutely right. And it's funny, my perspective is always sales. And I remember when way back in my career, Kevin, I'm really dating myself. And I remember I was a regional sales manager for 2 counties here in New Jersey. It was maybe 100 branches at the bank that I worked for. I was responsible for about 100 branches sales results. And I remember sitting in a meeting with the other regionals, and of course, the CEO and the president of the bank. And the president was going on saying, here are strategic plans. And they were, what the growth was and all of those things. And I knew my people, right? So I raised my hand and I said, I had a few hundred people. And I said, this is great. I think that we have the capacity to have that kind of growth, maybe even more, but you realize our employees don't have the skill. And he looked at me and he said, what do you mean? Like, he was so removed. And I said, remember in banks, Kevin, 100 years ago or 20 years ago, even, they were order takers. Now, all of a sudden you're saying we have these growth goals, whatever it was, whatever the topic was, but you're asking people to do a behavior or something that they've never done before. And he's like, well, they better figure it out. And I remember, so of course, because my people mattered to me, right? The value, their value to me, it was personal. They were my family. I went and I personally trained and coached the managers on coaching their people so that they had the skill to execute what the objective was. You can't tell somebody we want to grow 10%, go and do it, but and never tell them how or what perspective or what skills or what education or what books they should read, whatever it is, to help them grow their ability to be able to execute whatever the vision is. So it becomes this huge disconnect of conversation, I think, of sometimes the executives thinking, well, figure it out. You know what you want us to do, just go and do it. And then the employees saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. They don't even know the first step to take. And then they feel that they've let the organization down. So the human spirit is real. And I think that we create angst where there shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean?
I do. That's a great story. The way I think about that is if a company has always been about control, power to the center, that is taking away the opportunity for everyone in the team to lead and function creatively and safely, culturally safely, to their fullest potential. So if people haven't been in a work environment where they know they're truly in charge and can truly release their entrepreneurial spirit, you can't just snap your finger and ask people to shift gears. It really takes time to create a power dispersed, safe work culture where leadership is really shared.
You were the CEO, right? 6 generations. You could have just said, you know what, this is what my father did, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-great-grandfather. Why am I going to upset the apple cart? Let me continue, because it was a successful business, obviously. Otherwise it wouldn't have been around since 1848. What triggered your passion for this whole subject? Obviously you're the SD, right? That was impactful. But was it anything else beyond that was that pivotal point for you to create this? You're just passionate, and I love that because it's an important topic.
Yeah, really was two things. First, as you mentioned, my voice condition forced me to change because at the time I couldn't really talk at all. So I had to come up with a different leadership model because I had no choice. But then the second thing that really changed me, and I wrote a lot about this in the book, The Seventh Power, is shortly after I acquired my voice condition, I somewhat serendipitously began traveling from my home in Maine out to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota. It's a place, Connie, I've now been over 24 times. And there I met an entire community that didn't feel fully heard, that felt like a piece of their authentic voice had been taken from them. And in the oddest of ways, I could kind of relate to that. So from the two events, I took five key learnings that changed the way I thought about leadership. The first was, because of my voice condition, I knew what it was like to not feel fully heard because I often couldn't say what I wanted to say.
Wow.
At Pine Ridge, I really saw, there are lots of ways that humans can lose a piece of their free voice in this world.
Yeah.
That got me thinking about the very meaning or purpose of a human life on Earth. And I said in that context to myself, maybe it's to self-actualize. Maybe the one thing all humans have in common is we're just here trying to come into our own unique, never to be repeated voice, to know it, to love it, and to feel safe living it. But number four, I then thought about the role leadership had played across human history. Leaders had played in helping others find their voice. And I concluded, unfortunately, that in total, leaders had probably done more to limit, restrict, coach, direct, and use in a self-serving way the voices of others rather than to honor them and release them. And that's fifth, when it hit me that maybe my own voice condition, which I'd always thought of as previously as a liability or quite literally a pain in the neck, Connie, maybe it was a gift and a blessing and an invitation to lead differently, because I was, of course, running a company. I had a chance to not just think about this or just write about it, but to do it. And perhaps I could use the limits in my own voice as a CEO to give a bigger, stronger, safer voice to everybody in our company. That's what got me on that track. And we've been on that track, as you know now, for a decade. And the results have blown away any expectation I would have had for what was possible. As you mentioned, our company was doing good before. It had been around for 170 years, and we just have transformed the way we perform. But most importantly, at first, we transformed the way our employees experience the company. Our engagement levels today are running right about 90%. Statistically, third-party blind surveyed. Gallup will tell us nationally it's about 33%. Like 2 out of 3 people don't find their work meaningful. And what a waste that is. And at our company, in a lumber company, a lot of very blue collar, tough, hardworking jobs, that engagement levels, 9 out of 10 people say this job is meaningful to me. It's more than just a paycheck.
That's right. Here's the thing, you're being modest. So for all of my leaders out there that run divisions or the CEOs that run organizations, the proof's in the pudding, right? I know you're all thinking this all sounds great. What's the bottom line? So Kevin, you're being, and so you stop me if my memory from previous interviews in the past decade, your company made more money in 10 years in profits than you had made in the previous 5 generations before you. Am I faulty with that statistic?
No, you got that right. And I only share it to honor the idea, but it's true. I mean, we just rewrote what was possible by putting, ironically, the company second and the people who work here first. So we ended up soaring on the wings of thriving humans.
Yeah.
And our profit performance is a super important outcome of a higher calling.
And that's why I think I love you so much, Kev, because you're a CEO of a hardcore business. He's a lumberjack.
Yes.
I love calling you that. You're a lumberjack. And yet you understand. I know you could tell your wife that tonight. And it's so cute because you, by just shifting because of obviously the voice disorder, but your people felt valued and heard. And I see everyone, how Kevin just said, the company soared on the wings of the employees. It really has to start with the employees, and we have to trust and value and love and care and all of those things for our employees to get the results. So I know you're very humble, but I think that's such an important in business. It's about show me the money. And here, not only do you have a 90%, what am I thinking of, Kev? That engagement. Thank you. Right. 9 out of 10 of your employees love working there. And your profitability has exponentially grown, and the company, you have fun, right? So you're productive and you're having fun and people feel heard and all those things. To me, isn't that a simple concept?
It is. It is. It goes back. I was thinking while you were talking, Connie, to what we were chatting about right at the beginning of the show. It goes back to this. Most companies get whatever they prioritize.
Yeah.
And we've simply chosen to prioritize the employee experience. We've made that the first mission of the company. So you think about a flywheel with employees, customers, vendors, community, industry, shareholders, everyone that needs to be taken care of. We said we're going to set that flywheel in motion for everybody at the point of the employee experience. And we stuck with it, found metrics to measure it, and I talk about that as becoming an employee-centric company, making the employee experience first. And the simple idea there is if the employees are thriving, I can pretty much guarantee your customers are going to thrive with them.
And the shareholders win at the end because
everybody wins. Everybody wins.
Right.
And so that's really, I think in the modern age, that's also such a critical point. That kind of old business model is, for me to win, someone else has to lose. Whether it's management out negotiating employees or out negotiating customers, that model does not cut it anymore. I think about it this way. In the 21st century, this is not the industrial age anymore, right? In the 21st century, winning isn't winning unless everybody's winning. And winning isn't sustainable if a pile of people around you have to lose in order for you to win. And so when you take on a concept like respect for all voices, honoring people as they are, that's a concept that everybody in the company can get their head around and can benefit from. It's not that old model was employees exist to serve the company. The new model is the company exists to serve the people that work there. And if the company can do that in a sincere, authentic way, the company is going to thrive because the people that work there are going to make sure it thrives.
That's right. Yeah, it's a little bit of the entrepreneurial spirit, right? You give people the power for their own career, right? So I think that's the voice, right? I have a voice. I'm being heard by Kevin, by whoever your executive team is, but I'm being heard at that higher level. It's funny when you say win, lose, and being in sales for 40 years. I remember when I first started selling, Kevin, I didn't know I was selling, which is kind of funny. And
Yep.
I worked for a credit company. So the car dealers would send us deals, and I think I've shared the story with you before, but I ran the lease department, right? That's came out of college, got this job, and we had no leases coming in. And I remember learning, because my job, so I learned about leases, and they were really good for small business owners. Now the whole model has changed, but back in the 80s, a business owner could write off the entire car payment. It didn't just have to track mileage and all that other stuff. So I would call the dealer up and say, hey, listen, this guy's a business owner. You should really put him in a lease. And they're like, yeah, we don't know about that lease thing. I go, well, get a calculator out. Let me teach you. And I would teach them how to run the calculation. I said, now go call your client and tell them that this is how it's going to check with their accountant, but they should be able to write the entire payment over. So I said, so you win, right? Because the deal
Yep.
now becomes even better. The client wins because
Yep.
now they get more of the write-off, and your dealership wins because it's another sale, but you're creating another whole revenue stream that you guys aren't using because you don't know what it is, right? So I started teaching all the dealers. Well, of course, what happened is from 0 applications a week, I think we were getting like 300 applications a week. We grew it exponentially. Sales position comes. Now I was an admin person. Sales position comes. The dealers are calling me. You're going to go for it, aren't you? I go, what are you talking about? What's sales? I don't know sales. They go, what do you think you've been doing? I go, I've been helping you help your client so that everybody wins. Isn't that a beautiful thing? So from in my 20s, Kevin, I understood that if everybody wins, everybody
Right.
wins. And here's the
Right.
kicker. So what do you think those business owners started doing? Talking to their friends who were business owners and saying, hey, go see my friends at this dealership. They have this great deal going on over there. So referrals started coming in. So these dealers were like, you're a wizard. It's logic, people, right? If you come from a place of love, care, and respect, and you let people be heard, everybody wins. Like, this isn't that hard to understand, right?
That's a great story. I love that story, Connie.
Yeah, that's me 100 years ago, Kev. All right, everybody, we are out of time, and I am mindful of Kevin's time and your time as well, tuning in. I do recommend, Kevin had a new book come out last May of 2021. It's called 48 Whispers from Pine Ridge at the Northern Plain. Listen to me, another life-changing book, the insight that, and I'll let you talk about it, right, Kevin? The insight that you learned from Pine Ridge is beautiful and life-changing.
Yeah, that book, 48 Whispers, is a collection of short, what I call it, meditations. And so, along with some full-page pictures from Pine Ridge and the Northern Plains, but it's really about the first step to honoring the human spirit in others is honoring it in yourself. That's where it starts. And that's really what 48 Whispers is about.
Self-love. And we all need to get better at that, right? If we don't love self, how can we love others and respect others? It's tough. Life can be a tough journey, Kevin. Right?
Yes.
We're not minimizing that. And again, I defer back to you, Kevin, right? You lost your voice. That could not have been easy. I know it was painful initially, like you said, a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
And so the transformation, right, of your story, the transformation of how that impacted your organization, the transformation of those visits out in Pine Ridge, all of that has impacted you, the individual. And the more we love ourselves, look at the amazing things that just the ripple effect, right? You're the pebble in the pond of self-love. And then, the ripples expanding out is just all sharing all of that great energy. So I'm honored that you're my friend. I have to tell you, and I'm honored that you love coming on the show, because your voice of reason and logic, like no one can dispute it. And then you actually have the tangible results of the analytics on the back end, that this isn't just woo-woo nonsense. There's real results here, financial results, as well as well-being of the humans that work with you. And it's our responsibility as leaders and owners of businesses to take care of our people. So again, I think the more you give, the more you get, right? That's really the long and short of it.
Yeah, totally. Every time I'm with you, on your show, I leave with a bunch of energy. So you're an energy giver in the very best sense of the phrase. So thank you. I love this once again, my friend.
I so appreciate that compliment, and I accept it and say thank you. And back at you, my brother from another mother over there. And I want to share Kevin's website where you could find everything, and contact if you have any questions direct for Kevin and his team. But imagine this, the name of the website used to be Hancock Lumber, but Kevin said, no, my name should not be in the website. So it's now thebusinessofsharedleadership.com. So he lives and breathes everything he talks about. So again, go to the website, thebusinessofsharedleadership.com. The books are all there too, right, Kevin? If they want to,
yes.
highly recommend the Seventh Power. Highly recommend the meditation book. We all need a little bit of peace of mind, and I think it gives just such a nice reflection to use, right, to kind of calm the mind and see the logic of what Kevin teaches. Thank you again, my friends. Always good seeing you. Stay well, and keep on rocking your cool self.
Same to you. Thanks, Connie.
Thank you. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together. No matter what change you're going through, I truly hope that my guests and I, our ideas, our strategies, our tips, Kevin gave several just about building a dynamic culture, right, that is employee-centric. So many great tips within the show. Please go back and listen to my other interviews with Kevin as well. Always, he provides such great insight and tips and strategies that you can use immediately. Ideas are great. Information is great. Please go and apply it in some way, some small way. And I promise you'll move your needle. Magic starts happening and good things happen. Kevin talked about luck at the beginning. I believe we do have to have a little bit of luck on our side, but I do think that we can create the luck just by living this life of shared leadership and sharing the love out there. So again, thank you for tuning into Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I truly am honored that you tune in weekly to hear my guests and my own insight, and hopefully that we help you navigate change in your life a little bit easier. Everybody can use a little bit of ease and grace in their life. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next week. And I am honored that you're here. Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks, Kevin.